Okay, welcome everybody. We're doing a co-stream here with our buddy here, Brian White of Futuraza, and today we've got a special guest, Dr. Know-It-All John Gibbs, an AI expert. Tesla's Robotaxi launch is coming. We got new code that just dropped. It's got some new features for Robotaxi. We're going to ask him some questions like what version of FSD will power the launch? Will Teslas really be able to drive themselves home from the factory by June 28th, like Elon says? How prepared is Tesla in this race for AI with China? We're going to do a rapid Q&A with John. Welcome, John. Appreciate you joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate being here. It's been a while, so I'm happy to be talking to you again.
This is great. Perfect person. We wanted to drill you today. Tell us what's going on. Is Tesla ready for Robotaxi? Generic question. Go for it.
Very generic.
Super easy.
Well, I would
start
say,
off light.
I know. Start off with the easy stuff. I was going to say the interesting thing is that I literally just dropped a video about that today. So sorry. Oh gosh, that was some sort of sound. I was just doing a video today about that on my own channel, and I was trying to gather the facts, and so I wasn't really speculating as much as just saying like, here's what we know at this point. So the cool part is now I can speculate a little bit more because I'm on your channel, so I can try. But
all right.
Do I think they're ready? So there's a two-parter question to that. Number one is there's that are they going to drive the car? Is it going to drive itself from, I assume, the Gigafactory in Austin? He didn't specify, but I assume that's the one he'll be talking about, to somebody's house on the 28th of June. I believe that that is almost a solid done deal. Elon was like very definite about that. He was much more tentative about the 22nd. As I said in my video this morning, I said the reason why they're targeting the 22nd is because it's my wife's birthday, so they wanted to give her a lovely birthday.
Yeah, sure.
Present.
That's what it was.
As obviously, that's the only reason. They were like, oh, happy birthday to you. So, but I think that I've seen Ashok like post a couple of times in the last, not very many times because he's a busy guy, but you know, the sweat emoji and like that's going to happen and all this stuff. They're working really hard, obviously. I believe that they are extremely motivated to do it on the 22nd. Now, could it be the Gibbs brothers? I like it. Heck yeah. So anyway, I think that they're extremely motivated to do it on the 22nd. If they drop that date, they will probably back it up by an entire week. At first, it seemed like Sunday was a bizarre day to actually do the launch, but then I was like, wait a second, super light traffic, right? It's a Sunday. There's not as many people around. You can soft launch it. If it doesn't go particularly well, you can just pull it before Monday and wait until the next weekend and kind of relaunch it and see what happens. So I think it gives them the opportunity to gather some data, do a launch without it being a Monday morning rush hour, right? That's probably the worst thing you want, is to hit Austin rush hour. I've been there, you live there, you know, it's not the kind of thing that you want to submit your car to immediately. So I think that they're very motivated to get it out on a Sunday or a weekend day. So my guess is that we have heard nothing different than the 22nd at this point. So that's 4 days away. I would guess it will, let's see. I'll give it 60% odds that it will happen this Sunday. And if it doesn't happen this Sunday, I will give it the another 25 or 30% odds it will happen the next weekend, like the 30th-ish or something like that.
John, what's the FSD version that they're using? Would you call it version 14 at this point? And tell us the update, because I think 13.2, the last time we got that update was 6 months ago. Yeah. And what's been going on all this time? And well, how much more improved would you think that the version that they're using today and that they will use for robotaxis, how different is it? And how much more improved do you think it will be?
So I think that whatever is happening in Austin right now, they've just been fine-tuning that crap out of the model, more or less the model that we have. We've been getting all these like minor updates, which is weird. Like, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but there's been no like obvious reason for these updates, but I think that they're sort of trailing. So I'm going to call this 13 question mark. I have no idea what the actual number would be. I think 14 is reserved. There was a question that I can't remember if it was Holmars or somebody else asked Elon, but he responded in a kind of a two-part way. And he said like, oh yeah, the thing that we're seeing in Austin right now is super fine-tuned for Austin, but that will roll out soon, which I think means that we, you know, normal consumers should probably get it, call it mid-July, late July, something like that. But then he was like, oh, there's also this other version that's got 4.5x parameters. So again, if there's arbitrarily a billion parameters in the current FSD model, call it 4.5 billion. That's a huge, huge increase in the smarts, the parameters that this thing has access to. That one, he says, is in a much earlier state. He said it was alpha stage, and that a few months. So knowing Elon time, that's, I would say, maybe by the end of the year, somewhere to October, November sort of time frame. That would probably be 14. That would be my guess, that that's what's going to be numbered 14, and that this Austin version is a little bit of a one-off. I don't know if it's going to be 13.3. I think we're all on 13.2.9, right? I think that's correct. So anyway, so it's going to be some advancement over that, but I don't know what exactly the number that they're going to call it. Maybe they'll call it 13.5 because it's a big advancement, but I have a feeling it's going to be a 13 dot something, and that 14 is going to be reserved for this massive new version of the software. So like I said, this is very speculative at this point. We don't know exactly. And even after, let's say that the Robotaxi launches on the 22nd and it goes fantastic, we won't know what version of the software it's running because we're not getting it in our consumer cars yet. And certainly Green the Only is not going to be able to, they're not going to be like, here, have the Robotaxi, like dig into the hardware and see what the stuff is. So they're not going to be giving it to anybody for that kind of a purpose. So it'll take us a while to find out what exactly is new about this software. But I have a feeling a lot of it is just they are fine-tuning the crap out of it for Austin to make sure that it works. Because, you know, Texas has its own weird stuff. It's got the U-turn thingies, and it's got the way that people drive in Austin, which is different than the way they drive in Georgia, which is different than Massachusetts, etc. So I just think that they're working really, really hard to make sure that it operates as well as possible in the Austin area.
I had a question for you, which is when we see coming soon to FSD in the notes, in the release notes, it'll say that the length of the scaling model. What does that mean?
The length of the scaling.
There's something weird like that.
Yeah, if you can find it, because the exact language matters a lot. There's two things that are going on. Number one is the number of parameters, and number two is sort of the memory window, I guess you might call it. How, if you think about it, like every second is a lot of information, right? That it has to understand. But if you give the car 30 seconds of information as opposed to 10 seconds or 5 seconds of information, it could be much smarter. Because it's like, oh, I can see what's happened over the last 30 seconds and that this guy's been drifting across these lanes and probably is somebody I want to avoid or something. Whereas if you only have these tiny little, few second snapshots, it may not be smart enough to understand what's going on with that. So that sort of memory window is separate from the number of parameters. The number of parameters is, I'm sure everybody who's been paying attention to like ChatGPT and stuff, it's like 1.5 trillion parameters now in ChatGPT. That's like the number of little knobs that you turn. They're basically just numbers. They're literally just that many, floating point numbers that you multiply your input by to get an output. And so the deal is not exactly how many there are, although that does matter a lot, but it's the fact that we're going to multiply that by 4.5. That's huge. That's the difference between going between ChatGPT 3.5 and 4 or something. I think they 4 or 5x the number of parameters, and it got way, way, way smarter. So we could be looking at assuming that they can cram this all into a little bitty piece of hardware, because hardware 4, even though it's an amazing piece of hardware, is just like a portable computer. It's kind of, on the order of my MacBook over there that's sitting over there. It's not a giant data cluster. And you can't obviously run full self-driving off a data cluster because it's like, oh, the internet went down. The car just goes. So it has to be done on the actual device, which is extremely restrictive in terms of bandwidth, in terms of processing power, in terms of the parameters you can use. So all of that stuff matters a lot. So there's two kind of things happening at once. And maybe you found the exact thing. Yes. Okay.
3x model context length scaling.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Okay.
That's the window. That's how much of the history it can see. And 3x is a lot. So let's say it can see 10 seconds now. That bumps it to 30 seconds. Sure. That's huge. Suddenly, if you imagine if somebody just put a blindfold on you and then took it off and said, okay, drive. And you're like, you have no idea what the circumstances are. You don't know anything, right? That's going to make even a good driver is going to have a very hard time driving under those circumstances. And I'm thinking about this right now because one of the tests they do, I'm learning how to fly, is they put these glasses on you and they blindfold you, and then they turn the plane in a bizarre situation, and then they just like take off your blindfold and they're like, okay, fix it. And you're like, so
Wow.
yeah, I know. I'm a little terrified about that coming up. I haven't done it yet, but anyway. So yeah, but just imagine you as a driver having to do that. That would be awful. You would have a hard
permanence.
time. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, the early versions didn't have any object permanence. The early version would look at every instance as a brand new snapshot, and that's wild.
Yeah. Well, actually, let's dial it back to that for just a second. So, and this was on the highway stack until, was it version 12? I can't remember. So it was relatively recent on the highway stack, but the highway stack was a picture and then another picture and then another picture, and it would look at the picture and it would go like, hey, am I doing okay right now? And it's like, yeah, I think I'm doing okay. And then it would keep driving. That really is bad. That's not going to give you that sort of continuity of what's happening right now. It's just going to be like, snapshot. And there's only so much you can do with that. So yeah, the context window, the memory it's able to look at and work with is huge, but the number of parameters has to go up then too, because it has to be smart enough to ingest all of that information and to understand it. So it's a very, very difficult balancing act they're trying to do,
and know which things to ignore, because 99% of input is error.
John, why are they not launching with that version? Why are they launching today with the existing version? Are they ready with the existing version?
Well, I mean, when Elon mentioned that other version, he said it was alpha and it hadn't even been trained yet. So if they were going to do that, they're probably talking about a launch in, again, probably September, October timeframe at least. And they have unknown unknowns. Like maybe it's going to take them even longer. Maybe they don't know that there's some gotchas with that version. I think that they're like, this version is good enough. There's always another 9, right? You're never going to reach 100% perfect driving. And so there's always, if it's 99.999% good, maybe that's good enough for right now. And we can add another 9 by doing all this other stuff, but that could take another 6 months to do it. And I think Elon's and maybe Tesla and the FSD team is like, yep, now is adequate. This is good enough.
I did want to say real quick that this coming weekend in Muskegon, Michigan, one of the Gibbs twins will be there. Yeah. It'll be this one here, Dr. Know-It-All. They of course look identical. I can't tell you.
It just took me this long, John. It took me this long, Nick, for me to understand why you put the Gibbs brothers.
So exactly.
John Gibbs, and this is Nick Gibbs, but they're not related.
Oh, we probably are somewhere down the line. Yeah.
Yes. So if you're anywhere near Muskegon, join us. The Friday light show is free. The big event with all the speakers on Saturday is, I think, $20 or something. Yeah. It's going to be a whole heap of fun, and I'll be out there sizzling in the sun despite 8 layers of sunscreen. It's what I do.
Go. And I'm actually pretty much, as soon as we get done with this, I'm going to pack up my bags and leave for Michigan. So I'm very excited. Yeah.
All right. Well, I got a sizzling question for John.
All right.
Here we go.
So I've had this tension in my own brain about how I should think about this. And obviously I'm biasing towards what my more optimistic view would be. But in the last earnings call, we had a very revealing, important nuance, I think, that they shared with us, in that they are training a model that's more or less geared towards Austin. Right. That geospecificity, which has been kind of the hallmark of what we've been thinking that Tesla wouldn't need. And I'm curious to you, not so much is that a big deal that they're doing that, and is it a crutch, which we've, for a long time said it is, but more so, if that is the way forward, that each city has these very minor nuances that are important, hey, you can drive in this bus lane, hey, you can't in this one, hey, you can make a right on, or, if it's a one-way, you can turn left on red. If it's not one-way, you can't, right? Cities, states have these little nuances. How much of a hindrance is that, do you think, to the scalability of this? Or do you think once they have figured out how to incorporate those little nuances in one city and another city, that they'll be able to get into a rhythm and move quickly?
So this actually, it's a very deep question and a really good question. I think I'm going
Sizzling
to,
question.
yeah, sizzling question. I think I'm actually going to start with China, because no, I
As
know
all
that
roads
seems
start with China.
exactly, but people are like, what the hell? But the reason why is because Tesla very explicitly was not allowed to train on data from China. And they released their full self-driving stack in China, and it's working like there was a recent video that Ashok posted and said Jesus on it. He's like, there's this guy on this like little tiny dirt mountain road in China just turning on FSD and watching it drive. And I think even Ashok was probably like, oh, that's maybe not a great idea. But anyway, but it seems to be working amazingly well in China. So the generalized driving capability is really amazing. Now, is Tesla going to then fine tune this for their first market to make sure that it doesn't F up? I think so. If I were the head of the company, I'd be like, hell yeah, we're going to do that, because that would be just crazy not to be as sure as possible that it's going to work. Is that a solution that's scalable? Maybe. I have actually talked about this on my channel off and on for years, that my sort of thinking is that what you've got is a good driver, right? And it gets better and better with every version of the software that comes out, but it's a generic driver. So it's like, if you live where you live and you have to go to Omaha, Nebraska, right? Which I don't know. Maybe you guys know Omaha well. I don't. But if I went there, I would be an adequate generic driver for the first couple of months until I kind of learned the nuances of that town. And that is something that with the current version of full self-driving is just kind of never going to happen. It's never going to learn the nuances. It's always going to be the good driver, but the new driver. And that gets very frustrating. And I don't know if you guys have the same experience, but if I drive in a city that's not my own, I'm like, oh, this is amazing. If I drive where I'm used to and I know all the little things, then I'm like frustrated with the car, because I'm like, come on, man, you could do better than that. I know these local little details. And I think that in order for Tesla to become like the really pinnacle driver that it could be, it's going to have some sort of layer of local knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
I think the way to do it, instead of having to fine tune 500, 1,000 different versions of this, that's insane, right? If you just think like every kind of like medium-sized town in the US plus Europe plus China plus Canada plus, just plus, you could have thousands and thousands of these little models, and that would be absolutely insane. So I think that what they're going to have to do instead eventually, and this is my personal opinion completely, is create something like a LoRa, which is a low rank adapter, which is used for like diffusion models. If you want to do like, if you want to take a regular diffusion model and make it really good at doing anime, for example, you use a LoRa that you stick on top of the base model that just adjusts a few things. It tweaks some stuff and makes it really good at producing anime. Same thing for full self-driving. I think they're going to need some sort of equivalent of that. And it could just honestly be even a text file that's like, oh, hey, when it starts up, it like reads this text file. It's like, hey, by the way, people here love to go through stop signs, so be careful. By the way, here, this is Austin, Texas, so people make these weird little U-turns going left or something, right? It could be as simple as that. It might be just a mathematical matrix that's stuck on top, but that's much simpler. That's just something that you just very quickly can train and stick on top of a base model. But it's a really good question that you're asking, because it's always going to be generic until it's not.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It's funny the way you talk about that, because the way I've been thinking is you can't create one big model for everything.
Yeah.
You just can't, right? So my thought was it would kind of take the RAG approach, where we can have the main model, right? We have, if I'm going from here to Nebraska, for example, it can sort of, maybe not everything's not on board, right? Maybe if I know where you're going because you put in the nav, I can cache things ahead of time, pull it down from the cloud. Now I have it. I can, influence the model based on where I'm at, and we can have this kind of orchestration. I mean, Instagram does that, right? Like, or all these things, they load before it's even there intentionally, so you have a better experience. But so that's kind of, so it's interesting to hear you kind of think about it in the similar context.
Yeah. And I think you're exactly right. So like, 90 whatever % of my driving is done locally within like a 60-mile radius of my house. So that's easy because it just loads that, and that's just always the way it is. But let's say I put in the nav system, and probably if I'm going on a long road trip, I'm going to do that. So it's going to see it ahead of time. Or if not, you cross. Or if not, you cross over, you're now 100 miles from your house, and it's like, oh, I better load this new section because they're driving away from it. But anyway, whatever it is, it can load that new information. And I think you're exactly right that that's what it would do, is it would have access to that, but it would be a very, very lightweight layer on top of the base model. Yeah. So,
but didn't Elon say that once we optimized it, made it fit for Austin, but we're going to take that code and release it to all of us?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
That could be interesting. I'm actually very much looking forward to that. I wonder if they will. The danger, of course, is overfitting. That's not going to be a problem in Austin itself. So, but again, just because I'm always kind of blown away. I really love the Texas U-turns. Those things they if you don't know,
I hate it.
Say 3 or 4 lanes, and then there's a highway that you have to go over. What happens is, instead of having to make a left and a left, there's just this dedicated lane that goes around and turns around, which is very cool. But anyway, that's pretty unique to Texas, at least as far as I know. So the problem would be if you just took this Austin version and just threw it on everybody's car. Well, I'm driving, and all of a sudden the car's like, oh, I'm going to make a double, like this U-turn on where I absolutely cannot do that because it's Georgia. And that would be the danger of overfitting to the local environment. So they might have to kind of take that model and re-generic it. I don't know what the right word is, but take this really, really, really tightly fit model that works in Austin exceptionally well, and then re-put a bunch of data from the rest of the country on it to kind of just diffuse it just a little bit and make it a little bit less insanely adjusted for Austin. That would be my guess, and that would be why there would be sort of a delay. That, let's say it was just, bang up and it works perfect from day one in Austin, and they're like, woohoo, we don't have to do anything else. It still would take 2 or 3 weeks for them to kind of detune it, I think, a little bit and make it more generically useful for the rest of us. Now, if you happen to live in Austin, they might release a version of it for Austinites. I don't know if they'll do that or not, but that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, for the car to go home from the factory to the new buyer.
Yeah.
John, so from what I'm hearing, you're saying, it sounds like that you believe that they're going to launch this week, if not then the following week.
Can I add to that real quick? We just got a post from Omed Afshar, says excited for our Robotaxi launch this month.
Yeah, this month. Okay.
He just posted that 13 minutes ago. So
okay.
Did he mean any June in particular, or this June?
He said this month, not June. This month.
This month is June, so
yeah.
It just adds to the confidence. That's the only reason I interrupted.
I think it adds to what John was saying, was that they're going to probably try for Sunday, but then if some reason they might push it, so they don't want to commit yet that this is for sure Sunday. So what I'm saying is that, okay, you're saying that they obviously feel very comfortable with the existing version of FSD. We don't need to wait for the 4 times parameter thing that's going to happen sometime the end of this year. And so they're working on the operations of it, right? We've got this code that was found by Tesla app updates, as well as Green Day only. This one here is in the Tesla app. You can now see code, more Robotaxi code. So first of all, they're going to call the Robotaxi part of the Tesla apps called rides. And now they saw location type, pickup addresses added, new API endpoints, and this Alicorn reference. Alicorn is the project code, I think, that Tesla is referring to whenever they refer to Robotaxi. So things like this is happening to the app. So it's like they're preparing our apps, all of our apps, to be able to have this. And then more polish on the Robotaxi side, the option for dark and light mode UI, pickup location tweaks. So what's your thinking, John?
I think the pickup address was something I hadn't really thought about, but it's obvious. It's like, oh, right. Because I'm used to, I walk outside and my car is right there in my driveway because that's where I live. But if it's a Robotaxi, I better be able to say, hey, pick me up here. So yeah, I think that's really highly necessary. Can you pop that text, or sorry, the post back on the screen. That way I can just refer to it. And Herbert, I think you made me smarter today because you told me what an alicorn was. I don't know if you want me to say or if you want to say what it is, but
go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, well, according to Herbert, it's a combination of unicorn and Pegasus. So it's a double mythological being, so, which again makes perfect sense why Tesla might have chosen that. So that's very funny.
Oh, and it's got the wings. The Cybercat
exactly.
wings.
Yeah, and it's got the wings. So there we go. Oh, that's true. Right. So there we go.
Yeah, the Pegasus.
So I think it's really cool that they're kind of creating a subsection of the code called rides, which is interesting. And the API endpoints is really fascinating to me because
what is it?
Well, I mean, so application programming interface is
right.
The standard. If I want to write code that calls other stuff, like let's say I want to use Stripe or something, right? Because I want to put payments into my website. I would call API stuff. I would say like, here's what I want, and the charge is $34 or something, right? But an API is usually reserved. Well, I mean, normally we think of it as reserved for external people. So like we could develop for Tesla. Now, more than likely what they actually mean here is that this is an internal development API, right? So that Tesla engineers can call these things. But still, it's really fascinating that that's how they're interacting with it. That they're sort
I saw it differently.
separating. Okay, well, yeah, by all means, because I'm just looking at this, now. So
Oh, okay. Yeah, when I read that, it's this what's cool about people see things and they interpret differently. Our neural nets are funny. When I saw that, what I was thinking was now they have the API there so that McDonald's can interface with it, so I can put my order in, and so when I go, I get my order right away. Or if I don't know, like just anything like that, so that the world can work with the vehicle rather than just being a point in place, pick a place and go.
Well, that's what I was saying. That my first initial reaction was, oh, an API is always for external people to use, so this would be super cool. So yeah, so that. But then I was like, well, they could be using it internally too, because that way they can separate out the full self-driving team from everybody that does everything else. Like the people who figure out how to get the taxi to understand where to go if I give it a geolocation, those people don't have to know the internals of the neural network. They can just know, here's a GPS location, here's an API call that I do. It's like, hey, drive here, right? So right, that's the sort of API call that you just send in. Or something else, or McDonald's again, like, yeah, so that a third-party company that Tesla has always been very closed off to that kind of stuff, but with robotaxis, it would be perfect. It's like, yeah, I'm going to McDonald's to pick up my thing. Or let's say you contacted Grubhub, or not Grubhub because they bring it to you, but yeah, you get on the McDonald's app, and it would be, how cool would that be if you're like, hey, I want a Big Mac and some fries and stuff, and I'm going to come pick it up in 15 minutes. And it's like, hey, do you want a robotaxi to get you to there? And you're like, yes. And then all of that stuff just happens, and you don't even have to exit the McDonald's app to do that. That would be really cool. I don't think that's coming on day one, but that's a really cool possibility of integration between these companies. Yeah, that's really neat.
Yeah, it's something I've been thinking about a lot is, when the iPhone came out itself, it was pretty revolutionary from a hardware perspective, even the software perspective. Right. But the true unlock of the iPhone, which Herbert, we've talked about a lot, was the App Store.
Yeah.
And so it'll be interesting. And even Facebook, right? Facebook, the real unlock was when they learned how to leverage advertisement on mobile devices. That's when Facebook had its big unlock. So I get curious on how Tesla's going to do. Like, we got the hardware, and obviously we'll have the SaaS component of this, or I guess the PaaS, I don't know, or TAS, transportation as a service component of it. Yeah. But obviously there's a whole nother layer where you have this screen staring at you that's just sitting there. And what's the ecosystem that monetizes that from the third party world? The third party is what makes these things sticky or really creates the revenue generation, in my opinion. And I imagine Tesla and Elon won't quite put up such a stink to have a 30% charge whenever people use their app store.
Right. Well, I mean, honestly, Tesla might do it. Let's say that they did a multi-tier thing. So I can get my Robotaxi and I can have it be like a clean Robotaxi. Now, this might go too much towards the Windows world of things, but so I pay like $20 a month plus
I
a
love
ride
where you're
fee.
going with this.
Yeah. So but I'm cheap and I'm like, nah, I only want to pay $10 a month and I'll pay a little bit and I won't pay extra for mileage or it's less for mileage, but I'm going to get fed all these ads. It's like, hey, don't you want to stop over here? Hey, what about this? Go to Best Buy.
Netflix is doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And sure. I mean, if there are a group of customers who will be very price sensitive and won't care. They'll be like, fine, advertise to me. I don't care. There will be another group of customers, that is the YouTube premium customers, who are like, screw this. I don't want to be interrupted by an ad every 30 seconds. I'll pay the $18 a month or whatever it is. And so yeah, and that way you can bifurcate. And I think that's
brilliant.
Kind of genius. So I hopefully somebody at Tesla's thinking about that, but that would certainly explain a lot of new API stuff that they would be working on, is to allow that.
So I have a question for you, John. We all saw recently that Tesla took the 300,000 lines of code that was FSD and reduced it a little bit.
Yeah.
Would you share with us how much it was reduced and how unbelievably amazing that is and what it means?
So, well, I mean, I think the 300,000 was the amount it was reduced. I don't know what it was originally, but that's what they shaved off the top. So
it was 90% or something.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Right, it was almost all the code.
Right.
Yeah.
So call it 300, 330, 340,000 lines of code. All of that code was just cruft and stuff that Andre Carpathy and his team had been working on probably since 2017, 2018. A lot of C++ in there, as Andre had said. And what they decided, and this was, was that August of, was it 23 or 20? I guess it was August of 2023 when Ashok and Elon took that ride. I think it was the 28th of August, 2023. And they did the new neural network version of it. And that was the moment when I was like, oh, okay, things have really, really changed. And that was, scrap this code, scrap all the heuristics, scrap the, if this thing looks like this, then it's probably a stop sign, maybe do this. If this thing looks like this, then write the 300,000 lines of if then, and replace it with pretty much a giant neural network. Now, I think the neural network is much more complicated. I think, like Nick was saying, it's probably a mixture of experts kind of neural network or something along those lines. But sadly, since 2022, they have given us very little information about it. But But what you're getting is a trade-off from the heuristic code, which is all human experience going like, okay, I think I understand how to make this work. I'll write it out in code. That gets moved over to, hey, here's a bunch of random numbers, which is those parameters that we talked about at the beginning. Here's all these numbers. They have random weights. Here's a bunch of video data. Here's a video game. Go play it. Figure the hell out what's going on, how to not crash, how to get where you're going in the best way possible, and tune those little numbers until they make you do that. And that's the trade-off that they made. And it was obviously the correct idea because they were kind of stuck. They were having problems making good advancements using all that heuristic code. And by trading off the code for the weights, obviously things have gotten substantially better.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
So, John, John, Dr. John, not the baseball cap John, baseball John.
No, Gibbs. So there we go.
Dr. John.
Dr. John.
Yeah. So the baseball Gibbs. Okay. So this rides Tesla app. So it's going to be a Tesla app, right? Or is it a separate app, do you think, called Rides? But what's really cool, I think few are realizing this, is that if I drive a Tesla today,
right,
I hail a cab, it's me. I get into that Tesla, whatever it's a Model Y or a Cybercab, it's going to be my things in there. It's going to be my settings. It's going to be my music available. It's going to recognize my phone. It's going to be like as if I'm in my own car. And so every person who, even if you don't own a Tesla, you will have this. And that's why I'm thinking, is it going to be a Tesla app with Rides, or is it Rides, the app that you're going to download?
Right.
And then you can have that in a Rides in the X app, a Rides in the McDonald's app.
Yeah. Well, I think I've changed my mind about that recently, because I thought originally, and I think we were told this, that it was part of the Tesla app. You would download, you even if you didn't own a Tesla, you download the Tesla app. But that app that's a heavy app. It's got a lot of stuff in there for Tesla owners and power walls and all sorts of other stuff that a person who just wants to go get a ride doesn't really need all that information, and may even be a security problem potentially. So I'm thinking more recently that they probably have a lightweight app that's just going to be dedicated to rides that will, of course, share a lot of the same core functionality that the other one does, but just stripped down for what they need. Like, why do you need to have ownership features of a Tesla? Why do you, or maybe they will have that little thing like, hey, enjoying your ride, want to buy a Tesla? Here, you can click a button here, right? So they could have that, but that's a minimal thing. But basically, they could strip out a lot of things they don't need by just having a rides app. So my personal opinion is now they'll probably have a separate one, and also that allows them more control at the beginning, because otherwise, there's a lot of people that own Teslas or could download the Tesla app and maybe attempt to get the to get a ride on these robotaxis in Austin, like starting on day one. And Tesla may be able to control the speed at which that happens by having the rides application process. You can download the app, but you have to like sign up, and then you have to wait to be allowed to do it. And that way they could sort of dole out how many people are allowed to be on this thing at once, so they don't have like a million people saying, yes, I want to ride at the same time. So there's a lot of advantages of having a separate app, I think.
Cool. How big a deal was it with the recent news just a couple of days ago that China, out of the blue, says they're okay now to let foreign companies to release their data to outside servers outside of Shanghai? Yeah. Again, it's like a massive win for Tesla. Why is it such a big deal for Tesla?
Well, I personally was a little bit blown away by that. Just imagine the roles were reversed, and I don't know. There's not BYD, because they're not that great. Xpeng, I think they've got pretty good FSD from what I understand. So if they came to the US and they said, hey, we've got 1 million cars driving on the roads. Hypothetically, they don't, but we've got 1 million Xpeng cars driving in the roads in the US. We want to collect all that data and ship it back to China. We might be like, right? Because it's like, no, they're going to Area 51 out in Nevada, and it's like they're going into restricted
Pentagon.
areas. Yeah, It's in the Pentagon, all sorts of crazy stuff. So you might be like, that's not great. So I was kind of blown away by that. I was very surprised. Is it a big win for Tesla? Absolutely. It's huge. And maybe it has to do with the whole tariff negotiations. I don't know. But I think it's a bold move on China's part. And I think it's really I applaud them for doing it, because it is a very risky move. Now, they probably, of course, have some areas where they're like, no, can't collect it from here, because this would be a military installation or something. But it's going to help Tesla immensely to get better and better at the full self-driving in China, because they'll now have access to be able to train specifically on that data. So I don't know if it was Elon and Tesla that managed to make this happen, if it was the government that made it happen. Whatever it is, it's a very, very big win. It's a huge win for Tesla.
So it's two ways, right, John? It's like data that goes to Tesla's big, it adds up to the big data pool so that they can make all FSD from around the world better.
Right.
But also now they can then take the generalized knowledge and then apply it to Shanghai, to China, right?
Yeah. And they can fine tune it a little bit more, right? So a question going back to Nick's earlier question is there going to be, and I think in this case, probably the answer is yes, there should be an FSD France and an FSD Italy and an FSD China and an FSD UK, FSD America, or United States. Because those are so different, like all the road signs, things like that are so different that it probably makes sense to do that. But at the same time, Tesla clearly released their sort of generic full self-driving to China, and it was able to read and understand the signs. It's able to understand kilometers per hour. Obviously, it does that in Canada already versus miles per hour. I mean, it's a pretty impressive piece of software that it's that flexible at this point. But it's nothing. It's going to help to have all of this data to be able to be trained on. Absolutely.
So I wanted to point out on the China thing, this almost exclusively helps Tesla. I don't know of any other non-Chinese companies looking to export data, and it's clear that Tesla has a special relationship with the Chinese government. They don't get the big subsidies that a lot of the local brands do. In fact, they pay hundreds of millions in taxes, as required by the land acquisition deal that they did in 2019 as one of the first companies. It was within weeks of the new law passing, allowing that full, complete foreign ownership.
Makes you kind of think that that was in the cards. One of the reasons for that new law was specifically Tesla. So yeah,
yes, it was. Well, it was part of an older law that had a bunch of different moving pieces, but Tesla was absolutely on top of it when it happened. It started in 2017. It passed in 2019, and literally within weeks of that law passing, they announced it and broke ground. So it was a pretty unique thing. And they really wanted Tesla to be the catalyst to jumpstart their EV industry. And boy, did it. And so that's been a real success for them. I am very surprised that they were able to export data now, but it's only going to help. The FSD I've seen, there's some pretty good ones out there. There's some really, really, really terrible ones. My editor just recently bought an EV. He bought a Dongfeng in Nepal, and it's got auto park, self-parking.
Oh, cool.
Which is 50% successful, he discovered on his second attempt.
Oh no.
So he did get a little crunchy on his brand new car.
I have not driven but ridden in Nepal, and that is, I call it fluid flow. It's not traffic, it's just particles of it's insane there. So yes. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, there's a lot to it, and I think Dongfeng is using the FIG method for releasing their software. The fudge it good enough method. And is it good enough? But hey, we'll find out. So there's a lot going on. Go ahead, Herbert.
Yeah. So John, let's walk us through what's going to happen in Austin. And do you think that they will? How much remote drivers do you think that they'll need?
Well, so they said 10 to 20 vehicles to start with, which is very small. But people are like, oh, only 10 to 20. But it's like, hey, those things, each vehicle could give 30 or 40 rides a day easily. I mean, as long as they're not ridiculously long rides. So that's quite a few rides, even with just 10 vehicles. I think that they're going to probably at the beginning have a dedicated person per car. That would be, I mean, what is the difference between 20 employees and 3 or something, right? Why not have one per car just for the first week, just to make sure, right? I think that's the safest thing. Somebody who's just dedicated and watching it. It's in terms of expenses and stuff, it's not going to be that big, but assuming that things go well, they'll have a very rapid back off of that, so that eventually they might have one person per 10 cars or something. And then eventually it could be down to one per 100 cars, one per 1,000 cars as time goes on. But my guess would be that, again, Elon said that they're being very paranoid about safety, which is a good thing. Thank you. Is that they'll have one person per car watching, and they'll have a big giant red button, stop button, and it'll be like, stop the car now. And then they can take over and drive it with the joystick. But that seems like the logical thing to do, because it's not that expensive. And I don't think that would last for more than a couple of weeks. And then again, assuming the rollout is going well, assuming they're not having to intervene, then they start backing off the number of people so they can watch multiple cars. And if one has a problem, it goes dunk, and it pops up and it says, hey, you need to deal with this car now. So yeah, that'd be my guess. And again, I think they're going to try to do it relatively, I don't know. How do you be stealthy? Josh West is out there tracking down these things every day, following them around. So they're going to do their best not to make too much of a stir about it. But I think that, again, releasing on a Sunday, doing it on a weekend is a good idea on their part, because it's just a little more mellow traffic wise.
Do we have an idea of how many are out there right now running around?
Well,
without a driver?
They have said that they're going to release between 10 and 20. That's going to be the first batch, but they could easily have 50 or 100 out there right now just doing the data collection. So it seems like there's quite a few, and most of them are in stealth mode. They don't have the big Robotaxi sign on them. They're just cars. And I think some, as I understand it, even had drivers in the driver's seat just sitting there so that it was not so obvious that the car was driving itself. So yeah, they might have a whole bunch out there that are collecting data right now, but the release is supposed to be relatively few. And again, this all makes sense. And it sounds like I think Elon just posted maybe within the last 3 or 4 days that they're going to avoid certain intersections where they're not super confident. Maybe making an unprotected left-hand turn on a certain road where there's just insane traffic going both directions, there's a hotel that I stay at when I go to Austin, and coming out of there, if you take this back way around, you have to make a left turn onto a 70-mile-an-hour highway with just people, that's the kind of situation where I, as a human, I'm like, I don't really want to do this. So I think that's the kind of thing where they might just be like, nope, we're not going to go that way. We'll take a different route to get where we're going.
Chuck Cook's mouth is watering at that point. Come on, you can do it. You can do it, baby.
I do it, but I'm not happy about it. I'm just saying. So yeah. But anyway, yeah. So Chuck Cook's left, which amazingly enough, their cars are still working on every couple of days. I see a post from him. It's like, hey, they're back out. And I'm like, man, they're never going to lick that left-hand turn. That's going to be
they're stalking you, man.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. They're stalking Chuck. They just want to be near him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is, first of all, I just want to make the comment that, the criticism is that, oh, they're only launching 10. Oh, they're going to have remote drivers. Oh, they're going to have geofence. Then it's going to be limited. They won't take these certain turns. Dude, every single car company who's ever tried to do ride hailing did the same thing. And that's, in fact, legally required. That is part of the law, was that you have to have remote drivers at first until you collect enough data, then you slowly expand it.
Right.
And this is the right way to do it. This is safer. Like, you'll damn if you do, damn if you don't. If they didn't do this and goes, Tesla says they're going to launch 1,000 cars and it's all going to be no remote drivers and it's going to be anywhere, do you think that the world will scream going, you're putting everybody in danger? So, and by the way, I think that there's some theories, and I agree, and I think I heard it here first. I heard it here first with baseball cap guy.
Good old Nick.
The smartest Gibbs here. He said that, which makes the most sense actually, Tesla does not need to have a big fanfare, come out big. They're probably already doing it now and very quietly doing it. There's no need. In fact, you want it to be quiet.
Yeah.
And so it's possible they already have their 10 cars. And I think even Josh West was theorizing that these Robotaxi cars with the Robotaxi labels, that's actually a red herring.
Yeah.
That in fact, they've got just regular Teslas picking up people, right? Because it's only 10 and it's already been happening.
Yeah. And they could do that with employees easily, right? You just test it with internal employees. And so it's super simple. Yeah.
And that's just how you keep Josh West in one part of town while you're testing in the other part of town.
What do you guys think about that? What do you guys think about this idea that we got people out there that are like, stalking and trying to capture these videos?
Does not surprise me. Doesn't surprise me. No, I love it. And, we've seen Bradford Ferguson go out to count megapacks for a week because he needed to know what the business is doing. If you want to have a 100% informed investment opinion, you got to follow it. And we see analysts who are covering whole industries or even broader than whole industries. I cover all tech. No, you don't cover nothing. And, we are in this up to our necks. So nothing. I'm the guy who counted squares from drone footage. Come on.
I think I'd like to take a moment to talk about like Waymo in particular, because there's been I was doing research on this thing, the video that I did this morning, and I was like, oh my gosh, the amount of negative articles, and Waymo did it, Waymo did this. Waymo is a very different beast, and they've been very successful, which is cool, much more successful than Cruise. But a couple of things. Number one, they are never going to be in stealth mode. Those cars are the most obvious things in the world, right? It's like they're festooned with little things spinning around and all this stuff. So, so they can't do what Tesla is doing. They can't stealth mode this. But number two, of course, is that in order to expand to a new area, Number one, they have to map it all out very carefully, and they have to pretty continuously map it. As far as I understand it, the data can't get that stale, so they have to keep sending cars around and around. That's very expensive. And number two, they have to build cars, and these cars, they're not building very many of these cars. The amazing thing about Tesla is since mid 2023, they've been doing hardware for cars. So pretty much all of those cars for the past 2 years are capable of, at least Model X and, or sorry, Model Y and Model 3 are going to be capable of being robotaxis. And so as opposed to Waymo, which has scaled very slowly and sedately, and that's been fine. And again, I'm not throwing any shade on them. They've done an amazing job. But I think what's going to blow people's minds is, again, assuming this goes well, is it's like, oh, there's 10. Oh, there's 20. Oh, there's 50. Oh, there's 100. Oh, there's 1,000. Oh, now it's in Dallas and Houston. And it will be like a virus. It'll be like, ding, 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 and it will spread very much more quickly than people expect. Now, crossing state lines might be a different matter because then they have to deal with all the regulation. But Elon has already talked about LA and San Francisco. California is pretty friendly to this. Florida is pretty friendly to it. There are states where they can hop to next. And I think that's going to be what's going to blow people's minds. I think people have gotten used to the Waymo pace, where it's like, hey, we're in San Francisco for like 5 years. Okay, now we move to LA, and now we move to Phoenix, and now we move to Austin, and it takes us like 6 months or a year to go to each new place. Whereas Tesla, if this really starts to work well, could expand really quickly. And that will be the part that will blow people's minds. I think that'll be pretty cool.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Once it is ready to be, unleashed, they could fill out an entire city every day, smaller cities at least.
Yeah.
And that would be pretty exciting to see. But as you know, it's impossible and will not happen in our lifetimes.
Right. At least according to the Dawn Project that came back up again in my research today. I was like, really?
People cite it. They're like, have you seen the Dawn Project? And I'm like, no, I don't follow that.
Yeah.
I will mention, I'm going to take up my break a little earlier this week because it's been a long week. I'm 5 days straight on the road. I will be back at the top of the hour with the after show. If you're watching on my channel or on Herbert's channel, it will redirect automatically, and I will answer your burning questions. And thank you guys, and see you guys in Michigan, hopefully.
Yep. Yeah, I'll see you in a couple, and then tomorrow. See ya.
Thanks, Brian.
All right.
So, John, what's your number of how many Tesla robotaxis do you think will be in place by the, end of this year?
Oh, it's so dependent on what happens in the next few weeks.
Right.
Like the worst case scenario is it gets out there and it's driving around. And even if somebody's just a dipshit and like jumps in front of the car and gets hit, right? They just do it on purpose for some sort of like glory or something, and they get a bruise on their leg. That's going to be headlines out the end of the world, and that's going to really slow things down. My hope is that, again, Tesla is going to be a little bit subtle about this. They're going to be careful about it. I know that they're not stupid people. They know this is a potentiality. So they may be doing some of these robo-taxis with the big lettering on it and stuff, and then those are not actually the ones that are going around actually picking people up, right? So that they can try to like just ease into this. But if things go well, I think that they can expand really quickly. And again, it's going to take them a while to jump state borders because that's all new regulatory environments. But if it goes well in Austin, it could be in Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, Brownsville, et cetera, very, very quickly. A place like Lubbock, Texas, that I have a good friend who lives there. That's pretty easy compared to like Austin. Yeah. It's a smaller town. It's straight roads. It's very flat. No trees. So, right. Nick, you're nodding your head. It's like there are places that are easier than Austin to drive in, and they could easily, if it goes well in Austin, hop to those places. They're kind of along the lines of like what Phoenix is like, where it's just very gridded, easy roads, and the weather, generally speaking, at least in the summertime, is good. It could be very hot, but it's, generally good weather.
Yeah. Like I think if we take like Georgia, for example, if you solve Atlanta, you've got Alpharetta, you got Cumming, it's all done.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and Augusta and Athens and all the other towns, right? Yeah.
So what's your number, John?
What's my number by the end of the year?
Yeah.
If things go poorly, 100. If things go really well, multiple thousands.
Multiple thousands, because I think most people are saying 1,000.
Yeah.
You're
By
at
when?
multiple thousand.
By the end of the year, by 6 months
Ooh.
from now. Why wouldn't it be multiple thousands? Like what would stop them?
Oh, I agree with
if
you.
things
I
go
agree.
well?
So what's the number, like in your mind? Let's say one. If you can do 100,
Yeah.
then why would you do 1,000 versus 10,000? Except for operational reasons,
Right. Well, there's
cleaning, right?
yeah,
The
there's
remote drivers.
Yeah. Okay. We actually should break this down into two pieces. So number one is the robotaxis that are, I don't own the car. I call it up. It drives me from place to place. But number two, and very importantly, is we own Teslas. Lots of us own Teslas. And that's not a robotaxi officially because I'm not paying money per ride. But why couldn't they just turn all of these supervised full self-driving? It's barely supervised anymore anyway. They could easily turn all of those on. So yes, that's not a robo-taxi, but that would be millions if that's the case.
So you really think that that's going to happen by the end of this year? Because he said so. How would that work? Would that just be Texas? And then they would pay for insurance if something happened during that period?
Yeah, I guess that is one. I hadn't thought about that, but they would. How many states does Tesla have insurance in now? It's maybe 10
12.
12. Yeah,
Yeah,
something like
12.
that. So I think so. Unfortunately, Georgia does not have Tesla insurance yet, but I would think that in the states where they already have insurance, that they could move that. So it's like I engage this. It is now Tesla insurance. They insure themselves basically.
Yeah.
So my understanding is that that's not what you need. You don't need Tesla insurance everywhere.
Right.
Tesla can have a policy that's based out of Texas that can cover anywhere.
Okay.
And so at that point, when the onus is on Tesla, it's on them.
Right.
For us as individuals that have insurance, we have it's like a company having insurance essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I guess it's like if I have insurance here in Washington State, but then I go drive my car to California, then if something happens there, well, I'm still covered, right?
Hope so.
Yeah. One would hope.
What?
Oops.
Interesting. Wow. So you both think that that's going to happen? That's just I can't get my mind
again
to
if
agree with that.
it goes well. That's like I said, the next couple of weeks are, which I think is why Tesla is so they want to make this go really, really well, because if it goes well, then the floodgates open. I think any hardware for a car, at least a Model 3 and a Model Y, the S and X and the Cybertruck, it's going to be a different story for them because
let me push back on that though.
Yeah.
So you just said that we just spent the first half of this call talking about how we had to make sure that it does really, really well in Austin. We took this code of this FSD and we've fitted it for Austin, be clear. And then you said that the next version, 4 times per hour, won't come until the end of this year.
later.
So I just can't see them allowing my car to do this unless it has the latest software, which may not happen until, let's say, the first half of next year.
Yeah. You might be right, but I think that what they're trying to prove is that the current version 13 question mark, which is what they're driving in Austin, is good enough.
Yeah.
And if it is good enough, and they also have data. Let's say that Atlanta is just, for some reason, their statistics show that Atlanta is a sucky city. They just don't do Georgia. They're like, oh, sorry. But they show that Washington State, Seattle is great. It does fantastic there. They can look at the statistics per city, per state, and they can geo enable it. So I drive from where I live and it works. And then I get within 20 miles of Atlanta and it's like, sorry, it's now supervised full self-driving as opposed to unsupervised.
Interesting.
You have to, so right. They can do that. It's very easy. They know exactly where the car is at all times. So it could be partial like that. It might not be 100%, but it might be partial. It's like under good weather circumstances, when you're here, it's going to work. When you go over here, or if it's a thunderstorm or a blizzard or whatever, not going to work. And that I find that completely acceptable. That seems perfectly reasonable.
Yeah. I've been driving for 4.5 months now straight, every day, someplace, somewhere. I drove to Canada. I drove to Portland, 4.5 months. Never, so far, no disengagements, perfect rides. Could have been a robotaxi for every single one of those trips.
Exactly.
Easily. And it's been 4.5 months. And it's like, that's one data point. It's just, it's got to be better than 4.5 months. It's got to be better than a whole year, actually.
Right.
But people think that this is, I don't know. It's like, for me, it's like, geez, this thing's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's going anywhere.
I will tell you the one thing that still will end, that will close this hour: horizontal bars. They still, I almost drove through one. I was doing a thing where I went to my old high school, and it had a bar down for the just for the parking thing, and it went up, but I had to screech the car to a stop, and then wait for it to go up, because it just doesn't recognize those still. So hopefully Tesla's latest version has that solved. But aside from that, really, it works amazingly. It really does.
Perfect. Thank you so much, John.
Yeah.
Appreciate you. Check out his channel. That's Dr. Know-It-All. He's a professor of AI. So every time we get the chance to spend time with him, he gives us a little bit more knowledge about what's going on with FSD, Robotaxi, AI, all that. And then there's the other guy, Nick Gibbs. I'm just kidding you. I'm the least technical here, dude. So it's okay.
Awesome. I had a great time chatting. Thank you all
See you
so
guys.
much. And yeah, we'll have a great day. I'm going to pack for Michigan. See ya.
Bye, guys.
Travel safe. Bye.